Matvei Michkov is one of the best offensive talents available at this year's draft and is also the player with the most baggage and controversy surrounding him. Hard to scout or see his games over in Russia, a 3-year contract with his KHL team, and only now being interviewed by the teams that can potentially draft him. Will he get selected early or will he drop? And most importantly, will the Montreal Canadiens select him at 5th overall if he's available? I'll do my best to answer these questions, and that's right here at Talkin' Habs. Hey everybody, I'm Rick. Welcome in. The 2023 NHL entry draft is just a couple days away. And the elusive Russian winger, Matvei Michkov, is in Nashville, and he has started interviewing with the potential teams that are going to draft him. Montreal will interview Michkov, I believe, later today, and the Habs final decision-making will be underway at that point. So this is a deeper dive into Matvei Michkov, and it's to try to figure out what Montreal will do, and I'll give you my conclusion at the end of this video. Okay, so Michkov is 18 years old. He's 5'9" or 5'10", depending on where you look. And he didn't go to the combine this year where we would have found out exactly what his height is. So he is either 148 pounds, which is really small, or 172 pounds, and I've seen both. Or he's something in between. He's a right wing that shoots left, and his draft rankings, he's ranked anywhere from 2nd to 5th, depending on the list you're reading. Considered to be the second best offensive talent behind Connor Bedard going into this draft, even though not many scouts have really seen him play live, I think, in the last 2 years. He looks amazing in his highlight videos, but what player doesn't? But what about the lowlights and full games and seeing how he is in full games? I haven't seen any of that. Rumors of him being a bad teammate or being selfish on the ice or bad in the room in general have resurfaced again. But it's hard to know for sure. It's really hard to know for sure if they're true or not. But those are boxes that he'll have to check off. And it's up to the Montreal scouts to determine if he does or he doesn't. GM Kent Hughes has made it abundantly clear that every player will be judged not just on his talent and skill level, but on these things that are in these boxes that they have to check off. Best player available doesn't just mean most talented player. It means talent and everything else that goes along with it. Let's take a look at his strengths: creativity, shot, scoring ability, skating, stick handling, playmaking, and passing. I put a question mark there because it depends what scouting report you read. And sometimes even in the same one says he's not the greatest playmaker or passer, and then he's superb passer and an underrated playmaker. So I don't know which one it is. I haven't seen him. If you look at the highlights, looks like he's good at both. He creates for himself, and I ask, is that because he hasn't had a talent-laden team around him? Maybe the question of being selfish stems from that, and it's probably wrongly so if that's the case. He's made his name so far on lesser teams surrounded by lesser talent and still moves the needle, mostly on his own. Without the elite talent that should be surrounding him, I think that's pretty impressive. He's a strong skater with superb edge work, and this allows him to change direction effortlessly and without losing any speed. Without a top gear yet, this edge work is a big part of his success. His edge work allows him to slow down or to suddenly speed up to tricking the defender and whatever the situation requires. As I said, he doesn't have an elite level top end speed yet, and that's probably because he apparently leans forward a little bit in his stride. So top level coaching and specialty coaches will fix that. And skating can be fixed, and you just have to look at our captain Nick Suzuki to see that. That was a big knock on Nick Suzuki before he got to the NHL, and he's proven time and again that he's fixed that. Offense is a strength, has so far shown a unique ability to take over a game and bend it to his will. Has an NHL-ready shot with an incredibly quick release that can fool any goalie. At least in the KHL, we'll see if that does translate to the NHL. He's confident and creative with the puck on his stick and can get shots off from anywhere at any time, even with defenders around him or on top of him, in double coverage. His shot is powerful and accurate, and he can score from anywhere in the offensive zone, and he scores pretty consistently. If you focus on his shot, he'll fool you with his underrated playmaking and superb passing. His great vision and high hockey IQ allows him to find the right target and lane without having to force low percentage passes. Flashy but smart passer, makes passes very few players can make, and isn't a turnover machine because of this. He's got a great transition game and excels at zone exits and zone entries, consistently in the 70% ratio on both of those. If Michkov hits his ceiling, it seems like he's going to be worth the wait. Let's look at his weaknesses. Defense is that's his biggest weakness, is his defense. I'm not a big back checker. His physical strength, I mean, he's still a little small. He's got to build some muscle over the next few years. He's only 18. Doesn't use his teammates well. So I asked, though, if this is the case, how can you say he's a good playmaker? A guy who doesn't use his teammates well, I don't see that as being a good playmaker. So it doesn't jibe with him not being a good playmaker. It's got to be one or the other. Scores more goals than gets assists, which is normal for a sniper, but might indicate his playmaking is overrated. It might, or his passing, or that he simply doesn't have enough talent around him yet. This could be why, he doesn't have a lot of assists if he's a good playmaker. Just because he can get the puck to you, if your guys around you don't have the talent to put it in the net, after that, it's not going to happen. His lack of back checking kind of won't work here in Montreal. That'll have to be corrected before he hits the NHL. That's my opinion. Can rely on his own abilities too much in the offensive zone, and it makes him sometimes try too hard or too much on his own, causing him to sometimes miss good opportunities to create and make plays for his teammates. But that's fixable. It's fixable with the right coaching and development, which hopefully in the next 3 years he's going to get over there in SKA St. Petersburg. And now for the big weakness. This is his biggest weakness, and that's just defense. As great as Michkov is offensively, it doesn't apply to his defense. It's a 4-letter word for him, and he'll need a lot of work on D, I think, just to get up to the basic NHL levels. And, if he can just do that and just not really hurt you on defense, and it's not going to, the rest isn't going to matter if his offense is what it's supposed to be. His offense might make up for a lot of his defensive lack of ability, but not enough until he improves. So as it is currently, if he hit the NHL, his defense would be pretty bad. He's got 3 years to improve that, and as long as he gets it up to minimal levels, he's going to be fine. He floats and puck watches too often in the defensive zone, often standing still, feet not moving, and that's a killer in any zone. Your feet need to move all the time. He tries to cherry pick at times by hanging out near the blue line and waiting for a breakout pass, which, he's got the talent to finish and to bury his shots, which is good. But when I was playing as a kid outdoor, even just outdoor pickup games, I always hated the guys that just hung around the net and cherry picked for passes. And then big celebrations, but I hated that. Apparently doesn't use his stick well in the defensive zone. Sometimes active stick looks good, and then sometimes he's just not using the stick, standing still, not doing much. Now, despite all this, he has a pretty high rate of zone exits in the 70%. And I guess if once he gets a puck on his stick, he can get out of there pretty quick. So a lot of this is fixable, in my opinion, and with development over the next 3 years and the first couple of seasons in the NHL. All right, so there's an article in The Athletic I can't remember who wrote it. It's 4 questions to reporters on teams that are potentially going to pick Michkov, are in that area. So I've got the questions and I've got the answers from Arpin Basu. That's Montreal's. I think it's the only guy now doing the Canadians for in English, anyways, and I don't think they're doing French. So for the Athletic. All right, so this is the article. How do NHL teams and their fans feel about drafting Matvei Michkov? What do your readers, fan base think of a potential Matvei Michkov pick with the team's first selection in the draft? The majority of Canadians fans, as far as he can tell, are dying for them to draft Michkov. And in my opinion, this has less to do with Michkov than it does with the idea of what Michkov represents. A potential offensive superstar, something the Canadians have lacked since Guy Lafleur. The risk is real, but worth it for the fan base because of that gap that has lasted for more than 40 years. Where do you think the team's hockey ops personnel fall on Michkov's evaluation as a hockey player and if they would want to select him? I honestly believe the Canadians are not overly concerned about Michkov coming over from Russia. It is their strict hockey evaluation that has them concerned about him, most notably his size and the one-dimensional nature of his game. The talent in the offensive zone is undeniable, but it is the other 2 zones that I feel concerns the Canadians. And that's not only a reference to his lack of defensive acumen. The fact he is not much of a driver through the neutral zone is something I feel concerns them as well. Where do you think the team's ownership stands on the decision to draft Michkov? The minimum 3-year wait, I would imagine, would concern owner Jeff Molson, as would the war in Ukraine and the possibility of Michkov signing another contract in Russia once this one is done. But ultimately, ownership has shown a consistent belief in the hockey operations department, and this will be their decision. What do you think the team will do if Michkov is available at their draft slot? Would your opinion differ at all? I don't think the Canadians will draft Michkov if he is available at number 5. That's the impression I get based on many conversations with team personnel that I've had. My own opinion is that the Canadians already have Cole Caulfield, and having another one-dimensional, undersized scoring winger in the team's top 6 is not a recipe for a Stanley Cup. If Caulfield weren't around, I would fully endorse rolling the dice on Michkov, but Caulfield is around, and he has an 8-year contract for a lot of money. You need to build a roster that can win the Stanley Cup. And while drafting for need might be seen as foolhardy, drafting with your team's reality in mind seems to be practically smart to me. That's a really good point about Caulfield. He's already here. He just signed long-term, and he's a one-dimensional, basically, player, shooter, sniper, same as Michkov. Is the talent level the same? Might not be, but he's already here. You can't have 2 of those guys on the top 6, and that is true. It's not a recipe for Stanley Cup success. General Manager Kent Hughes was asked at the recent NHL Combine in Buffalo about the risk-reward evaluation on Michkov, and he certainly didn't downplay the risk element of it when he first responded. The Canadians had to get to know the player much better, not having had anyone from the organization speak with him to that point. Hughes added, Michkov has a 3-year contract for now, but it's not as if he's not allowed to re-sign in Russia either. So you can see that, Hughes is at least concerned about things like that. He's aware of it, and it's not lost on him. He concluded the Canadians would do their homework and weren't scared of the unknown regarding the player, but his comments did little to dismantle the notion he's looking in every other direction but Michkov's. Neither did conversations we had with sources over the weekend. At least a couple of them wondered aloud if the Canadians wanted people to think they like Michkov a lot less than they actually do, but all of them said they'd be surprised if the 5'10", see here, 5'10", 172-pound winger would be pulling on a blue blanc rouge sweater come draft day. So it seems people more in the know than I am and more on the inside than I am, like I do, doubt that Montreal will draft Michkov, but it's not out of the question completely. It's going to hinge, I think, on this interview and on those boxes, and if he checks those boxes. All right, so in conclusion, My thoughts. Michkov has a lot of tools in his toolbox, no doubt. And if he brings them every night, he should smoothly transition to the NHL and the right team. Are the Montreal Canadiens the right team? This is the question for this video. He certainly has the skill set to be a great player in the NHL, but does he check all the boxes for Montreal? To me, this is the big question, and one Montreal might feel they can't get a handle on unless they can get that handle in the interview. It's harder to do for this player because nobody's really seen him live or up close or been able to talk to him for the last 2 years. GM Hughes has said no matter who they pick, he'll have to check all those boxes to be considered best player available. So for them, best player available is not just the most talented person, right? He has to check those boxes. Everything combined makes the best player available. Will Montreal select Michkov if available at number 5? This is the whole question of this video. I'm going to give you my answer. I'm of the mind that they don't pick him. I think there are players that meet the requirements closely enough. So don't mince my words. I'm not saying talent levels are the same, but if you take in everything else and talent levels are close enough, then yes, they meet the requirements. If not fully, they still do. That will make them a more palatable pick, in my opinion. And Montreal will have some control in their development, which is something they won't have with Michkov over there in Russia. So let me know what you think, Gary, in the comment section, which is right down there below. And a special thank you to these people, longtime subscribers, members, and maybe a couple others. But thank you all, and thank you all for watching. Till next time, stay safe out there. Peace out, and I'll see you on the next video. Ciao, everybody.